Welcome to Art Talk with April. I'm April Harris. I'm the artist of Inked April, located in Birmingham, Alabama. And this podcast is going to be about all things art. We'll talk about books, invite some artists to interviews, and much, much more. Let's get started. Welcome to Art Talk with April. Today we have Kitty Smothers, who's a wonderful artist here in Alabama. And Kitty, just love to have you on, and I'm so excited to talk to you further and learn more about you. What kind of art do you make?
Thank you so much, April, for having me. I've just been really excited about this. And I guess I'm most known in my area for portraits, for portrait paintings, mostly working in acrylics. I do some oils, and, I like to explore gouache and watercolor and everything, and pencil, but, mostly acrylic. So I've been painting those and selling those, working with different families for about 25 years now. Mm-hmm. And I would say, I mainly focus, like, in my artwork is more of a realism with a dash of impressionism. And I'm always striving to kind of loosen up my brushwork a little bit, as I can, but basically portraits. And lately, I've been doing some more personal work. That is what I mostly enjoy doing is the figurative and portrait work.
Yeah, I really love the things that you've been doing. And I'm so impressed by your portrait work, because that's something that I personally really struggle with. And I know how much skill it takes to truly capture somebody. And when you're taking on commissions for people who, you're painting their loved ones, they could be people who passed away or their children, and it's so emotional. The collector really has an emotional attachment to the painting itself. Mm-hmm. And there's so much pressure there. We'll be happy with it, because it's one of those things I feel like they have so much emotional attachment to it that when they see it for the first time, they want to have this
mm-hmm. Aha
kind of moment. And you're like,
Yes, it is a lot of pressure. And like, I usually work with clients back and forth. I'll either will Facebook Messenger or I'll text them, and I don't often like to send progress photos, because a painting, it gets really ugly before it gets really good. And, the preliminary stages of a piece of artwork are, little layers of color that you've laid on, and it doesn't look like much. And just about every portrait that I start on, there is a point that I just kind of want to throw it away, so you don't want to show anybody that. But whenever I have it kind of where I feel like it, I'm getting close to completion, and I'll send a photo, and I'm just kind of waiting on a response with my breath kind of held, kind of waiting. Are they going to love it? Are they going to hate it? I don't know. But it's like sending your child out there, on the stage, and that they're frightened to death of, what the audience is going to say, but you gotta put it out there anyway. So yeah, it's like putting your child out there, and then, just kind of waiting to see what they say. So it can be really, really pressure laden and anxiety ridden. And then, of course, if you get back so many different responses, and, hopefully it's a good one. And you have those occasional times where, it's negative and it hurts and it's personal, So yeah, there's just a lot of emotion on both sides that go in,
there is.
Yeah. Just as much as it's an emotional thing and an emotional connection for the client, it's also very, very personal for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. I don't know why I hadn't thought about that part of it, because that's the reason why I don't do them. It's because of my own experience with that part of it. Yeah. I did a portrait in 2012, and it was two young boys that had passed away. And I don't know if it was a car accident or something like that. And I couldn't get it right. And I had to redraw it 3 times. And it came down to, I'm so sorry. I don't think I can do any better. Here's your money. Please take the artwork. And it was at that point I was like, I just don't feel like I don't feel like I can charge people and do this for them.
Yeah.
So I just totally get it. I'm like, oh my gosh, you are so amazing that you do what you do.
Oh, no. Let me tell you, there is a painting that I have right now hidden in my closet. Yeah. And I never bring that painting out. But it, after around 25 years of, I've got some skill and some time behind me, but I worked on this one portrait for this client, and I put so many hours into it, so much work. Being an artist who also has a full-time and a part-time job, you come home from work and, maybe you're working on your painting in your living space with your children running around. And, I often ask for their feedback, but I had so much time put into this portrait and so much work put into it. And so anyway, I send the photo to the client to kind of, give them a look at it. And I was feeling pretty good about it. Yeah. And her response was, this is just not working out. She said, I've asked my husband and it doesn't look like, our child and our grandchild. And I don't want this painting. And huge setback for me. Yeah. And, I tried to, which I always do with clients. I want to make them happy, and we'll work as long as they'll work with me. If I have to keep working on something over and over again, the ultimate goal is for them to be happy with it. But this client was not willing to, continue working with me. So, I think that everybody has got those, maybe you call them failures, challenges, things that we hide in our closet that we don't experiences. So, that's mine. Maybe one day I'll paint over it, but it's definitely a learning experience for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you get started in art? Did you start when you were a child or when you were older, or what's your story there?
Well, I was raised, and I currently live in Troy, Alabama. And I was raised in a really rural area, out in the middle of nowhere. But my dad is an artist and a musician. I come from a really musical family. My mom was a nurse, and she was always really supportive of me. And I'm the baby of 3. My brother he's an artist as well. And so, I just had those influences around me whenever I was very small, and it was kind of a way to connect with my dad. And I had that in common. And so, I started when I was really little. And I think, and maybe you tell me how you feel, but I think that as little girls, that we always kind of ask that question, what makes me worthy, or who am I, or what is my thing? I wasn't good at sports. I love drawing, I love drawing. And my peers and my family, they kind of told me that I was good at it. And so that part of me just became my identity, as I was even really super young. I was an artist at that age. And I can always remember drawing from a very, very young age. I don't remember a time when I wasn't drawing, and I had a teacher that was, I can remember when I was young, I was, maybe 4th grade. I can remember her inviting me to stand in front of the class and to teach a little, give a little example. Teach a little class about how to create greeting cards with construction paper.
Oh, how fun.
So, little things like that just kind of made me feel like, okay, so this is my thing now, and I just started really, really young, and I've always enjoyed it.
Yeah. I feel you. I'm right there with you. I empathize with that. And then you just love doing, any kind of project as a child that's creative and artistic. You're like, yes, this is where I can get an A or something.
Yes, yes. I can remember, trying, things like the spelling bee. I can remember that my word that I got out on was blizzard. And, I knew pretty early on that academics, I'm pretty good, but I'm also pretty average in that. So art was more my jam. So
Yeah.
I always went with that, I'd always had like a big imagination, love to play. Playing became really real for me, and so that was just always just what I found my joy in.
Yeah. Just part of your spirit, kind of, like who you are from the beginning.
Yeah.
So did you, not that it matters, but did you go to school or anything for art?
Well, my first art class was in high school. So
Yeah.
I found early on that I knew I was going to love art class. I couldn't wait until I got in high school and I got to start art classes. Yeah. And I just really fell in love with it. And my art teacher, she was just really, encouraging. And, she would, talk about my artwork and just really give me a lot of opportunities to expand on the lessons that I was in. And I can remember one particular semester, I did not enjoy drama as much as I thought I would. So I was so lucky to be put in 2 periods of art class. And I just thought that was amazing, So she would kind of let me sit in the back of the class and just create for hours,
awesome.
And so it was wonderful. But she was really instrumental in my life. Her name is Miss Sylvia Helms. And she just kind of encouraged me. She said, she said, you need to go to college for something that you're passionate about. Mm-hmm. And, that was my passion. My passion was art. I loved it. It was like I was driven to create art, even if it was little doodles, on an envelope or whatever. So I ended up, when I graduated high school, I got a small scholarship. And I went and I got a BS in studio art at Troy University, which was, my local college. And I met so many wonderful artists there, instructors there. I apprenticed under Noel Hollis, which is an internationally known artist. Had a lot of good experiences. Meeting different artists and some of my college professors, even now, we have a great relationship and we work together on different things. So, that was a wonderful experience in my life to have that BS. And then actually years later, this is going to sound crazy, but I went back to school and I got an MS in counseling and psychology. Some people are like, counseling and psychology, what does that have to do with art? But for me, art is really introspective. It's so closely intertwined with my mental health. Mm-hmm. And, I have gone through, some trauma. Who hasn't, different experiences. And I struggled a lot with, panic attacks and anxiety when I was a teenager. And so I really wanted to work on myself and I wanted to kind of help others. So those 2 degrees just really art. You don't have to have a degree to do art. You don't need anything to do art other than to show up and be your best self. Those are the background that I have. And, I'm grateful for those opportunities.
Yeah, that's really interesting because that's something that I myself have been thinking about a lot more, is how art has become such a therapeutical thing for me now as an adult. It's like, wow, this makes me feel better, And so I think it's absolutely connected. And so it's really interesting that you have those 2 degrees under your belt, because to me, those are connected, And,
whenever I was earning my MS, I worked with a group home for juvenile girls who had, been in some trouble. And so they were in this group home setting, a lot of them for 6 to 8 weeks. And art therapy was something that I really worked with them on. And, that just really captured my heart to see these girls from different backgrounds and situations and struggles. And, a lot of them had never even thought about art, had never tried art or anything like that. And so I was able to work with them and kind of pull a lot of them out of their element, and just to be able to see what art, it opened up a channel so that they were able to process so many different things, and they were able also to see that, maybe that's something that I might also be good at, that maybe I can try that. That's something that I never even considered before.
Yeah.
So, that was also a passion that kind of developed during that time, is just being able to share that with other people. And it really challenged me, and it stretched me too. So it was a beautiful thing to see some of the things that these young girls were creating, and then to hear them talk about the meanings connected with those pieces of artwork, because I think that that's something that is important to a lot of us as artists, is that our work is meaningful. So, that was a beautiful thing and a beautiful time in my life to be able to work with those young women.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome. I could just imagine, because and a lot of, I think, younger artists struggle with that, and younger people too. There's this point where I think all human beings come to this place where they're like, that's not something I can do, or that's something that I like to do. And to me, creating and being creative, making art it's like the most human thing to do, and it's such a way, it's like this other, like you said, another channel to express what's going on. And it, for some reason, using your hands and really thinking about, how you feel about something and expressing it. It's not necessarily that this art has to be MoMA quality art or something.
Right. Yeah.
It's the activity of it that is honestly the most important part of it, is the activity of it, and the processing of the making, instead of just, I can't do this. I can't draw a stick figure, kind of person.
Yeah. I guess with me, that's something that's always kind of been a challenge. When you create something, you are being extremely vulnerable. Especially if you share that with other people. And that's one thing with these young women that I worked with, is that when you have people that are coming from backgrounds that was extremely traumatic, maybe households where their parents were on drugs, or maybe they were on drugs, or maybe, they had been assaulted, or, all of these really sad stories. And then you ask them to take a sheet of drawing paper and to draw something that is meaningful to them, and then share that with others. I would see girls a lot of times just want to shut down, and they don't want to share anything with anybody, because they had received so much negativity in their life, and know that we're here for you, and we're not going to judge you or shut you down. And like you said, your artwork doesn't have to be, Mona Lisa level. It doesn't have to be, something that is going to hang in a gallery, but as long as you know that you're creating something that's true to who you are as a person and is very honest, that is valuable. And so that's an important lesson for young anyway, no matter what their background is that when you create it and you share it, it's coming from a very personal part of who you are. I mean, and there's very few things to me that are as beautiful as that is.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes me sad when I hear someone say, oh, well, I'm not creative. I don't do that or whatever. I'm like, oh, but you could, and you should, like, you should just try it,
Yeah. That's true. And I think that there's so much pressure, and also in the social media age, there's so much comparison out there that a lot of times we feel like, well, if I'm not great at something, that maybe I just won't even try. Mm-hmm. We have to push past that, and me, myself, one of my greatest struggles has been pushing through, those questions about whether or not my artwork is good enough. So I think that, it's just, we have to be our own biggest fan in a lot of ways. And we have to push through those things and know, that there's room at the table for everybody's artwork. And, you don't have to measure up to your idea of what you think is just, perfect or gallery quality.
Sure. I'm so glad that I grew up in a time where there wasn't social media, because who knows what I would have thought, if there were so many artists to compare myself to, which I could compare. You could compare yourself to artists and art books and things like that, but it's different. It feels like that's history versus people who are alive here and now. And so you're like, I just can't imagine what it's like for younger girls or younger kids in general, just to share their work. And that's one of the things that I think social media is so good for, is that we now have a platform that artists can share things globally. Yep. And anyone can see it, And so it's a great opportunity that artists didn't have before, but also you have to work through that whole, okay, I'm not getting likes, I'm not getting comments.
Yeah.
And still do it. Just be like, that doesn't really matter to me. I love doing this,
Right.
I don't care if anyone else likes it or not. And, be vulnerable and share and that kind of thing. And I think that's one of the really beautiful things about seeing your work online, which you're like, I'm not sure if it's good enough. It's wonderful. I can't believe you say that. Which, we all probably think that about the artists we know. We're like, oh, well, that's so great. But I think we all have that part of ourselves. We're like, I don't know if this is very good.
And that can change from day to day, depending on what's happening in your life. It's so funny. One day you can feel like I'm on top of the world. And then the next day you're like, am I even an artist at all? Who am I?
Why am I still doing this? Oh, that's so funny. So, what would you say we've talked about so many great things, but what would you say was maybe one of your biggest trials through your art journey?
Well, I kind of mentioned a little bit about it earlier, but it's just getting trapped in my own head, has always been my biggest obstacle. I am my biggest critic and really manage my thoughts a lot. That's why mental health is so important to me, because I've always, because of different things that have happened in my life, I've always battled anyway a lot of insecurities and anxieties and, so imposter syndrome, that's huge for me, wondering if your artwork is it good enough? And then whenever you do have the occasional client who's got negative feedback, you can't, I've always struggled to let that take a toll on my confidence, fighting the challenge to let that be an assault on my self-worth, that sort of thing. It's just, I have to really be mindful of where I am in my head, and, to make up in my mind that, this is what I do. This is who I am. And, it's good, it's good enough. And I'm enough, and so just getting past those negative thoughts, that's always been really, really tough for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that, and I kind of feel like, through a lot of my reading, like I like to read a lot of biographies of artists. I think a lot of, just about every artist goes through that, where they're like, struggling to figure it out, and there's this point where you're just really unsure if it's even worthy of the energy and the time. And it's kind of a process in itself just to learn to value yourself, value your work, and be brave. It is really an exercise that's, I think, very valuable in itself, just to process all of that and get over that anxiety, because I do the same exact thing. I'm the same way. Absolutely. I've gone through all of that the same way. So I think that's interesting. And I can imagine, like if there are any younger artists that are tuning into this podcast, that, I mean, I'm 42. You're older as well, right?
I'm 42. Yeah. Same age.
Yeah. And so we've been doing it for a little while now, and we are still talking about this.
It is so funny because, like, when I think back about what I would be like at 42, and, I assumed that I would have life completely figured out. And I assumed that, by then I would know who I am and what I'm doing and where I'm going. Yeah. I think that's always going to be, you're always going to be growing, you're always going to be growing. If you're not growing, you're slowly dwindling away. Some days I wake up and I think, well, what am I going to be when I grow up? At this age still
feel that way.
Maybe I should make cakes, but then I remember I can't cook,
You'll be in your 80s like, oh, do I still need to do this?
Maybe I should be an actress or something. I just have the wildest thoughts about who I am as a person. And, so life is funny. The tricks that it does to us and the paths that it takes us down, and how that, we thought we'd be in one headspace when we were a certain age. And that really makes no difference how old you are. You're always morphing and changing.
Yeah. So if anyone listening to this is in their 20s, just so you know, that doesn't stop.
No, it never does. Never does.
It's part of the journey.
And be kind to yourself, when you're questioning yourself and your abilities and what you're going to do with your life and where art has a place or doesn't have a place, just kindness. And, I've heard it so many times before that we're often more cruel to ourselves than we are to anybody else.
Yeah.
And, we need to make sure that we make that a priority to talk to ourselves like we would talk to a friend, instead of all the time focusing in on the negative.
Yeah. I wish that there was a podcast like this when I was younger and that I heard it, because it's one of those things. I think that was my personal struggle as well. And that could be across the board for a lot of people that are artists and looking to do that for a living, coming to that place where you're like, okay, I can do this. But then the very next day you're like, what am I doing? So what would you say, what would be a biggest success that you've had? Like something that may have validated your experience and you felt like, okay, this is something that I can do.
Well, working with families to paint portraits that are, meaningful to them. Mm-hmm. Whenever you see the peace that it can bring to somebody, a measure of peace in their journey, or joy to a family that has lost somebody, or painting a portrait of a home that held so many memories for a child or a pet. We love our fur babies too. When I can deliver something like that just, it brings a lot of a joy or peace to a person, that's a building block for me. Mm-hmm. And I try to just really focus on those and know that that's heart work. What I mean? Like, that's important to me, that I can do something that can be a blessing or a benefit to others. And one of the things that has occurred in the last year and a half, and even during a pandemic, this crazy pandemic, is that I've gotten out. I'm a very introverted person, and if I had my way, I would sit at home and be a hermit for the rest of my life, probably. And just,
me too.
And but pushing myself out of my element to collaborate with my community and create an art guild for my county. And that has been something that I'm very, very proud of, because learning and growing with other artists is something I didn't expect to be so instrumental and important in my life. But it's been wonderful. Mm-hmm. So we started this art guild probably about a year and a half ago, and I'm able to bring together people of different ages and backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And we all get together at least maybe a couple times a month. We paint, we create together, we discuss challenges, we share ideas. That to me has just been phenomenal work.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I am so glad that I didn't stay in my own corner and that we got out and pushed to do that. So that's something I'm proud of.
I think that hits on the nail on the head, and I see where you're coming from. I've seen your posts about that art guild, and I'm like, oh, I wish I lived there. I would go. And it's just, there's something to having community with other artists. And even if you're not talking about art necessarily, and just sharing your experiences as artists do, it's really empowering and validating. And you hear, you see other people working through things, and maybe they feel like they're struggling, but you can see, oh, you're not struggling, you're doing good. And you can kind of, have a back and forth of support right there, realize, oh, it's not as bad as I thought it was or something.
Yeah. It's so cool because you meet people that, maybe you didn't even know them before. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite things that we do is we'll have share at night. So you can bring a piece or two of your artwork, and we'll have the artist sit down and talk about, how they approach that artwork, what it means to you. And I have sat and watched so many artists who are hesitant to even share their artwork because they're afraid that it doesn't, measure up to some of these other artists that have been doing it forever. And you're sitting there and you want to scream, "It's great!"
You're like,
wonderful.
"Oh, I love it!" And you're like, "Oh, it's so awful how that happens."
So. Yeah, but I mean, it's really cool because you see people just kind of blossom and open up, and we did a couple of plein air sessions. We took it, our little downtown square area. Yeah. We painted, and it was so cool because people from the community would just kind of stop behind you, and they'd kind of hover and kind of watch what you're doing. And they'd say, this is so awesome that artists are out in our community, and that we're able to see you do this and create pieces of artwork. Maybe you're painting, a scene from the community. And so that was just really cool to be able to enjoy that and share that with the community in a very casual way. So really enjoying what we're doing with the Art Guild.
Now, what is the name of your art guild?
It's the Pike County Art Guild.
Okay. And just in case anyone is listening, where can they join? What can they do to get involved in the guild?
The Art Guild, our website is pikecountyartguild.com. Pretty simple to find. I have learned since then that there are other Pike counties in other states. So we make sure people are looking at Alabama, but and then also, our we have a Facebook page, which can be found easily by searching for Pike County Art Guild. But right now, our guild is very casual. We don't really have a very structured membership or anything like that. What we do, and what I love about it, is we gather up at one of my friends. He has an art studio downtown. Yeah. We turn on some low, chill music at night, and we just kind of, enjoy that time together. So, it's just no pressure, just a really cool, chill place, atmosphere to be. So.
Yeah, if you're in that area, you should go check it out.
Yes, you definitely should.
That sounds awesome. Oh my goodness. So we've talked a lot about, younger artists. What advice, what other than what we've talked about now, would you give someone? Now, I mean, like you're working, but your goal is to be full-time professional. Is that correct?
Yes, what I do is I work full time for our university in our city in IT. And then I also teach psychology online for the university.
Okay.
I am going to retire from my full-time job in about 4 years. And I am so excited to move into that new life period. And what I would say to younger artists is make your mental health a huge priority, you know. And that may sound kind of odd, but, like we've said, mental health is closely intertwined with the ability to create art.
Yeah.
So I would say really make that a priority. If you're in situations or relationships that maybe are damaging to you or negative or soul sucking, seek out therapy and know that you can make changes, that you can make choices and changes in your life to improve it, and just make sure that your headspace is really positive and nurturing. Because, as I've said before, art, being so introspective, you're going to have to be your biggest fan here. You're going to have to tell yourself that, there's space for you, that you're worth it. And so, that would be my main suggestion and advice, is just to really work on yourself and know who you are, who you want to be. Be a kind human, be good to others, work on those parts of yourself that maybe are sensitive or that just really need you to change different patterns in your life. Be willing to work toward that, because when you're in a place in your life where you feel, that you have really paid attention to those areas, it makes your artwork even better.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you can let go of some of the stressors in your life and that you're dealing with those things, it just makes you a better artist. And then also, I would also say, expect negativity, because it's going to come. You're going to have naysayers. You're going to have people that just don't share your dream. But don't let that be an assault on your self-worth. Don't let that, kind of convince you of anything other than that you're worthy and that you can do this. So, just really expect that and don't let it alter your path or change you. Because people are going to be negative, but then there's also going to be so many wonderful people that are supportive and great. And, surround yourself with those people.
Yeah. 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 That's really good. That's really good advice, because that's so true. There's always going to be people who don't understand that path and that feel, I think, because of particularly in the US, because of our idea of what success looks like and what that path to success looks like, that it's really hard on creative people to be brave enough to step outside of that and do something different, like
right.
You don't have to necessarily work for a company for 30, 40 years and retire and then do art. You can do it along the way. You can, choose to, change your lifestyle and do it earlier than that, or, that kind of thing. I feel like is such a struggle. That's a really great point.
Or you can also start when you're in an advanced age.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
You don't, it doesn't,
you're never too old.
Exactly. Art doesn't have to be something that you've done from the womb. It can be something that you start exploring in your, 40s, 50s, 60s. It doesn't matter, So yeah, there's always opportunities to incorporate it into your life, and, it's never too late.
Yeah. And just don't listen to those negative Nancy's out there who are, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? they may not understand, but it doesn't mean that you're not worthy or valuable as an artist or as a person, and that it's not the right path,
Yeah.
That's really good.
And, I think every kind of work that we do, it can be personal on a certain level, but art is just, it is a particularly personal thing, so it's something that you've really got to show up for and be aware of where you are in that journey. You really got to know who you are, who you're striving to be, where you're striving to go with your artwork. And, even if nobody shares your same dream, you got to push on and know that it's, it's worth it.
And there are also so many different paths within that creative sphere, like just because you don't have your art in an art gallery somewhere, it doesn't mean that you're not doing well at it, or you're not doing, you can't be successful at it. There's illustration and graphic design and all kinds of things that could be a possibility. Right. And a way to express yourself. So, and I think a lot of people don't understand that. They see that one path, like Picasso or Van Gogh, or, you struggle and you're the starving artist and then you become famous. And that's very rare, And so just realizing that there's more to it, and there's all sorts of possibilities.
Right.
Do you have any events or things coming up where people can find your art?
Well, this pandemic is crazy. So a lot of things are not going on like they were before, but we're just, we're continuing to have sessions with our art guild. So that's something that we'll be there for, that we'll be doing, and just encouraging and learning from other artists. And then, I can be found on my website, kittysmothers.com. And then I also have an Etsy shop. And my Etsy shop is more of my personal work, still lifes, florals, a lot of work that's just personally meaningful to me. It's kind of where I play, Yeah. I got to play with some different things. And so I can be found in my Etsy shop. You can just go to Etsy and look for Kitty Smothers art. And then also Facebook and Instagram, I'm easily found there. Yeah. So, that's where I am. That's where I'll be. And I'm just looking forward to doing more. I can't wait for spring to get here. Got a garden I'm planting. Plants. Yeah. Gardening is a recent new adventure for me, and kind of looking forward to creating more artwork that is inspired by the garden and time in my garden. And so plein air, things like that. Just a lot of exciting plans coming up.
Sure. And I've noticed that you've also I believe that you've been taking photos of some flowers and things like that. Is that in your garden or around the area that you've been, I guess they're going to be reference images possibly?
Possibly so. We've had a really, like everybody else, we've had a rough couple of years. Last year or the year before, my husband, he had COVID pneumonia. And then in April, I think of last year, he was diagnosed with colon cancer.
Oh, yeah.
And, that was a really hard thing. And up until that point, it's so funny, but up until that point, I didn't have the first plant in my yard. Nothing at all planted. I had never grown a thing. Always, called myself Black Thumb. Yeah. But for some reason, I knew that when he was going through his treatments, I needed to do something that would keep, my headspace clear. Sure. And so, I thought, well, if we're going to be at home a lot and, he may not be feeling well and I need to be home for him, then I'm not just going to sit in the house and watch TV all day. I'm going to get out and maybe gardening, maybe improving my yard, and I think a lot of people have gone to the garden since COVID started because we're stuck at home more. So I just started landscaping and starting a flower bed, and that just I'm kind of crazy like that. Like sometimes things I'll get an idea and then it becomes okay, I'm all the way in now.
Yeah.
I'm spending lots of money. It's my new thing.
Yeah.
So it easily erupted and blew up. Just a huge passion project. So yeah, I started planting and growing flowers, and now I've got plans for this food garden, and so yeah, it's lots of fun
Awesome.
to learn new things and grow and change.
Yeah, like I mean, and that's another point too, is that as artists, we need to, not just be focused in on our art, but experience life and all that comes with it. And gardening, which I am a total black thumb, I'll go ahead and admit it.
You could learn. You could learn.
But the idea of doing that is just so exciting to me. And I love flowers and I love nature, and so, and my husband's actually a really great gardener and can do all of those things. So I can see how that would be very enriching, and I could see it ending up being in your art too, being that kind of, flowers, and even, if you're doing a vegetable garden, I mean, how beautiful would that be to paint,
Yeah. I think I'm probably more for the aesthetics of it than I am for even eating the food that comes from the garden. Because like I can imagine that I'm just going to be taking photos of these baskets of tomatoes, just look at these beautiful tomatoes that I've grown, So it really is like a creative thing for me. It's creating an environment that is inspiring and beautiful. And, like somebody has said to me before, they're like, oh, your garden is so beautiful. And I'm like, I don't show y'all all the dead stuff because there's tons of dead stuff too, I'm just showing you the highlight reel.
You're like, this is beautiful. Just don't look over there.
Lots of death over there,
Oh my goodness.
Great graveyard of salvia.
Oh no. So who is a favorite artist of yours?
Well, let's see.
Hard to choose.
Yeah, it is hard to choose. I've always loved Frida Kahlo. I always loved her self-portraits, and I love art that is female figures, things like that. So I've always loved hers. Hers has a story behind her paintings, and I love that. I mean, what a crazy story! It's awesome. Frida's life was just so interesting. But also, more of a modern artist that I have gotten interested in is Mary White. Whyte. She's a watercolorist, but she has a whole series of paintings of blue collar portraits. So people that are just, they're doing jobs like peanut farming and women cooking and, things that a man selling watermelons or an old theater, a guy running a theater. For some reason, these portraits just, I don't know, they just really speak to me. I guess it's because my family are mostly blue collar workers, and I see it's so inspiring to me to see people in their own element in their regular daily lives. So Mary White is an artist that I'm really excited about. I love her artwork.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, you definitely should. She's got some wonderful work.
Do you have a favorite art book?
Let's see. Right now, it would be Mary Cassatt's Mothers and Children.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There's I just got that. I'm a huge Amazon Prime shopper.
Aren't we all?
So that book came 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it's just filled with beautiful images of women and children, and just beautiful, so inspiring to me. And as a mom, those images just speak to me.
Sure.
And so I love that Love that book.
I love Mary Cassatt. And when you said that, I was like, of course she likes Mary Cassatt, because your work actually does kind of feel that way. Have you ever felt that way?
So much. No, I really,
The textures and colors and the way that her work is.
Well, I strive to really, I want to focus on her work more and maybe do some master studies, because what I really love about her is her soft edges on her portraits, the pastel colors in some of them, just the way that she approaches the form, and just there's such an aura about these portraits.
Your work is like that. Your work is like that.
That's a huge compliment for me. That's a huge compliment for me. But I can only dream, No,
you are going there. You really are. I hadn't made that connection for some reason, which is so odd, because I love Mary Cassatt, and I've always thought, I just love Kitty's work and the way that the looseness of it and your brush strokes and the light and the way you're capturing people's faces and the form of their face and the way that you're capturing that. I'm like, how does she do that?
Wow, that's a huge compliment. I really, really appreciate that. I just, I've just always loved faces, and, Mary Cassatt is she's an ultimate hero.
Oh, that's amazing. You you ought to put that in your, on your website, inspired by Mary Cassatt.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know though if I want to say that though. People are going to be like, hey.
Well. As a fellow artist who has been looking at Mary Cassatt's work for some time, I feel you're there. You're there. I think that's so interesting that you've got that kind of vibe going. And like you said, sort of an impressionist, and the light. I think it's the light and the texture for me personally, when I look at your work, that kind of gives that feeling, and Mary Cassatt's work is so, like you said, mothers and children, and just, some of that real life kind of moments too. And it just feels so soft and warm, Well, thank you for coming to this art talk and talking with me about this. I have really enjoyed it, and heck, maybe one day we'll do it again, but
great.
I really appreciate you doing this. And this has been a really good interview, and so much great information for all the artists out there. And if you're looking for portraiture, go see Kitty Smothers, because holy cow, I'm telling you, you should check it out. But that's it. Thank you for doing this with me. And
thank you so much, April. I really appreciate what you're doing to, bring artists together and to have people hear their perspectives. That's just huge.
Thank you for listening to Art Talk with April. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe.